Hey, Teach Better family. Happy Sunday. My name is Katie Miglin, and I am here with the Teach Better family, where I get to talk on a Sunday weekly warm-up show, which is totally not something I'm used to doing, but I'm excited to be here tonight to talk to Andrea and Katie and kind of how they work together, how they've navigated the grid method, and all the good things. This is exclusive to our private Facebook group, but will be live streamed tomorrow on Monday to all of our other groups, which I'm super excited. So whether you're joining us on Sunday or on Monday, welcome, sit tight, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Like I said, my name is Katie Miglin, and I am with the Teach Better team, and I have the pleasure of joining Andrea and Katie, who are a part of our Teach Better community, but we are live on Sunday nights in our private group, Facebook group, and we really kind of want this to be a space where you can collaborate and talk in the comments, so we encourage you to drop some information in the comments, questions you have for Andrea and Katie. But then tomorrow on Monday, this will be live, or this will be recorded, posted, if I could talk, into all of our other groups on all of our platforms. So Andrea, Katie, welcome to our Sunday weekly warm-up. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself. Let's start with Andrea, I guess. Tell us about yourself. Where are you at? What do you do? All that good stuff.
Okay, I'm Andrea, and we're both sixth grade math teachers in Frisco, Texas. And we've been teaching together for 8 years. So we've been long-term partners. We've been working in grid method stuff for 3 years now and counting. What do you want to say?
I'm Katie. I've been teaching for 27 years, 8 of them together with Andrea. I've started down in elementary school and moved my way up to middle school teaching math.
Okay, and you guys were kind of telling me a little bit about your kind of partnership, but you've been together for 8 years. So did you both kind of connect in 6th grade? Did you know each other before that? Kind of tell us about how you two kind of connected.
I was already at the middle school, and she came on after another one of our teachers left.
Okay.
And it was my first year teaching.
Yes.
So I was just, just starting out, and you had been in the middle school for maybe 2 or 3 years.
2 years.
Okay.
So I was fresh, and she was ready to help me become a good teacher.
And you guys just kind of kicked it off.
Yeah. And we've clicked. It's been a good partnership.
Awesome. Well, and we kind of talked, we're all in good space here because we're all middle school, math background. That's what my background was. But Katie, you said you were elementary before. So what kind of made you decide to switch to middle school?
I was just kind of in need of a change. I'm one of those that I don't like to get stagnant in doing stuff. So I'm always trying new things. And I ended up, my kids went to our home campus, and I moved up to middle school and decided to try that whole experience.
Okay. Andrea, did you always know you wanted to be a middle school teacher?
No. The teaching is actually a second career for me.
Okay.
I played in an orchestra for 10 years, and then I decided to go back to school and get a teaching degree. And I actually was initially trying to get into high school math. So I'm certified for high school. And then I did my student teaching in an elementary school, which was just shocking because that's far from what I was expecting. And then when I was applying for jobs, the 6th grade one was available, and I love it.
At first, you were a little overwhelmed with the idea of 6th grade.
Yes.
Because she was still like, oh, I don't know.
It's too young.
It's too young.
But the 6th grade, that is the sweet spot, I think, of middle school. Yes. They're switching from the elementary school up into the middle, so there's some of that going on. And but right now, I'm happy teaching 6th grade math. I'm happy.
Good. Yeah, I think it's funny that you say that because I often feel the same, that middle school is it's kind of that middle child. It's like they are like, they're not quite babies. They're not like too cool for school just yet, especially 6th grade. They're just kind of navigating this like adolescence, but you can still like talk to them about normal things. You can talk to them about the most recent movies or, social media, but then they still kind of rely on you just enough that you're like still important and cool in their eyes every once in a while. And I taught 7th grade, and I know that like 6th grade, whenever I would cover a 6th grade class, they did not get my jokes. Like I thought I was a really funny person, but they did not get it. Yeah, they just don't get the sarcasm, I think, as much. But 7th grade, I felt like was my good spot for me. But that's so cool. So you guys have been working together for 8 years, and a few years ago, you stumbled upon something online. And Katie, do you want to kind of tell us about what you stumbled upon that kind of led you to here?
Sure. She was actually out on maternity leave when the whole COVID shutdown.
Okay.
And, during COVID shutdown, you're going, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? How are we going to handle this? How are we going to deal with stuff?
Yep.
So of course I'm reading every social media situation that I could. And somehow in something that I read, it talked about Teach Better Team. And during that whole, going into research it, I found the website and I decided that I was going to go do I don't know how many modules there were in that. I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome with the grid method. And so after she came back from maternity leave, I'm like, okay, this summer, your job is to go do this training and see if you love it as much as I do. Because we really work well together. You can go into either of our classrooms and it's very much the same.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing the same stuff.
Okay.
And she jumped right on board going, ooh, you're right. I was saying to you earlier that other people on here that we started off where our goal was 1 unit. We're going to do 1 unit with the grid method. And as we approached the end of that unit, we went, we need to do another.
Do you remember? I think the kids were taking the unit test. They were taking the unit test, and then we had there was one more block day probably. So we had like a day in between, and then we switched it right then and there.
We were on the phone at like 10 o'clock at night.
Oh my gosh.
Sitting there working, trying to get this whole thing set up just enough so that we could go with it.
Mm-hmm. But we saw the power in it, like right off the bat. And I think my comment was, we can't go back.
Yeah.
That's so cool though, because sometimes the grid is such a different style of teaching and learning. Some people actually have the opposite effect, right? They are like, I don't know what I'm doing. This didn't go well. And they like almost feel like they should disconnect for a little bit. I know that's at least how I felt, as I was like, I can't wrap my head around this. This didn't go how I thought. But it's so cool that you guys were literally giving the test and being like, oh shoot, we got to like do this again. Like, let's keep going. So good for you guys.
We did prep our administrator. We told her before, we were like, we're trying something totally different and this could majorly fail. So like, don't yell at us. But she was on board and supportive of us trying something.
That's so awesome. Well, you're getting a ton of love in the chat. Janelle, who said she's from Illinois, said that's so cool you stumbled upon it and then became a total sponge for learning. I think that speaks volumes to the fact that you saw that there was a need in the moment. You're, like you said, all of us kind of scrambled there when COVID hit of like, how are we going to reach our students? And, you know, there's so many people who just felt so overwhelmed, but you didn't. You immediately jumped into action, Katie, and Andrea, poor Andrea's on maternity leave, and she comes back to this whole new style of, you know, teaching. But I think it speaks volumes to how amazing you guys are that you were able to just kind of like work together and kind of keep going and kind of navigate this. And like you said, you haven't been able to turn back and you're like totally on board, which is so cool. Now, Andrea, you are a member of a different group, a new kind of wave of people that just joined our family. You want to tell us a little bit about your new role?
I am one of the 2023 ambassadors for Teach. Yes.
That's awesome. And so what made you decide that you wanted to be an ambassador?
Honestly, I had both Katie and I had actually talked about it. Over the summer, we kind of stumbled upon like there's this ambassador program and we didn't really know what it was. But I had considered applying then, or, whenever it was going to open up.
Yeah.
And then I didn't. And I kept thinking about it, just as something maybe to do.
Yeah.
And then Josh Stamper came out and spoke with us, and he really encouraged both of us to apply. So I did it.
Slacker.
I applied, but we are a team. We are always a partnership.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted her here, because she's the one who really started us both on the Teach Better journey.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, it's so crazy, like stumbling upon the Teach Better kind of group to now being an ambassador, being a part of that amazing organization. I know lots of people who are jumping in our comments are either ambassadors or have applied over the course of the last couple of times. If you did not get accepted to be an ambassador, we encourage you to keep trying, because it is a select group. It is so hard. I actually was apologizing to Andrea because I looked at all the names a billion times with the committee and they all became a blur. And so when she jumped on, I totally missed that you're in our ambassador group. So we're so glad that you're a part of that family. It's so fun to kind of jump over, especially in their private Facebook group and some of that communication, and just see how connected everybody is. So if that is something you're interested in, or Katie, hint, maybe jump on that and apply and join the family.
I just sort of forgot to fill out the application.
I appreciate the honesty. It's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
She looked at me, she goes, "You didn't do it?" And I went, "Oops."
That's what's a good teaching partner, though, is someone to be like, "Hey, don't forget, deadline's coming up. Hey, do this," because I needed that all the time. All right, we're going to kind of switch and kind of dive into the discussion, which is like the meat and the potatoes of the show. So sit tight. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, Teach Better family. My name is Katie Miglin, and we're with our Sunday weekly warm-up, where we stream this in our private Facebook group, but then it gets pushed out on all of our platforms on Monday. So whether you're joining us today on Sunday or tomorrow, which would be Monday, welcome. I'm here with Andrea and Katie, who are great middle school teachers from Texas who are utilizing the grid method. So Katie, Andrea, we've kind of talked about all the things, kind of how you guys got connected. But when you kind of think about education and you think, maybe putting grade aside, or maybe that's a big part of it, but when you kind of think about what excites you about education and what kind of fuels your passion to be a teacher, what would you say? What kind of excites you?
Do you want to talk or do you want me to?
I'll talk. Well, I think I love teaching math. I love it. I want others to have that same passion for it. I think it's just a beautiful thing that can happen when you're writing it all down. That's my inner nerd in me. But I really want to be able to teach these kids the basics and the foundation to set them up for success in algebra and in the high school classes. And I just strive to be a better teacher so that I can connect with them and help them to grow and not hate math. That's always, the stereotype is people hate math, and they don't have to.
So would you say that when you're kind of thinking sharing your passion, is that what kind of made you switch? Because you said this is your second career. So is that kind of where at what point did you decide, I want to be a teacher and I want to be a math teacher?
So music and math, most people, do think that there is that relationship. And I actually was teaching French horn lessons. That was my instrument. And I really enjoyed teaching and working with kids, but I personally did not like teaching the music part of it. So I think in my mind, for my whole childhood, I said I was never going to be a teacher. And even though whenever I play with my siblings, I was the teacher and I had class and I did all this. But I think in my mind, it was always I was going to be a music teacher. And I just didn't want to be a music teacher.
Okay.
So when I finally, in my adulthood, was working with the kids in music, I realized, oh, well, maybe I can go back to school and get a teaching degree. And maybe I can just focus on something. So when I went and I spoke with the career counselor or whatever they were called at the college, I asked, is there any way that I could just teach math? Like seriously, that was a completely honest question. And she was like, yes, they need you. So math was just always one of my favorite subjects. And then it clicked on me like, oh, I can be a math teacher. Like I don't have to be a music teacher, even though that was my first career. So no, I wasn't always wanting to be a middle school math teacher. But I do love math. And now now I really like being a middle school teacher.
Well, and it's interesting that you bring up that you kind of had always just like leaned on what you were familiar with. You know, you knew music, that's what you had been doing. So it just made sense in your head, like, I'll just become a music teacher. But I don't know if you even noticed you said it, but like you brought your passion with it. You know, you realized you liked math, but then you were passionate about wanting kids to be excited about math. And that is what kind of fueled your, idea that you should switch, which is so cool and so interesting because, so I know I taught my stuffed animals. I was the youngest, so I just teach all my stuffed animals. And so to me, it was like, I was always going to be a teacher, but you kind of, you switched, you had a different career, and being able to pivot and really kind of decide is so cool and so admirable. So that's awesome. All right, Katie, you're up. What is like your passion? What excites you? Tell us a little bit about that.
I'm very, very driven by the kids. The kids fuel my day. That's what I love, seeing them get excited. I love seeing them interested, love making connections with them. Me teaching math is almost comical because I'm a math teacher because I was a kid that struggled with math and I needed the help. And I've taught second grade all the way through sixth grade. And I've learned all of these, how to make it easier. And I love working with the kids to try and help them see that you can get over the humps, you can get over the milestones, you can get over things to make it easier. It's fun to watch them grow. I actually taught one group of kids in second grade, then again in fifth, and then again in sixth. They look like, are you coming to high school with us? Coming to college? I'm like, nope.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Did you see a lot of like growth that you weren't expecting?
Yeah, for sure. And it's really fun because I've still got connections with some of those kids. And
oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
They still come back and, hi, Miss Kavanaugh.
That's so cute.
Yeah.
So we had a couple of people in the comments that said, like, I made my little brother sit with me in a whiteboard. And I do want to know, if you're in the comments, if you're kind of listening, will you let us know if you also taught either siblings or taught stuffed animals? Like, is that just like natural teacher things that we did as kids that then like we just kind of knew? I mean, there's three of us here. We all said we did some level of that, but like, surely that's the norm, right? That teachers at some point started teaching something long before they actually were in the classroom. So if you're listening, drop in the comments if this is also what you did as a kid. If you like taught the neighbor kids, taught the, insects crawling around on the ground. Yep. Janelle said stuffed animals and dolls. Okay. I'm glad I'm not alone. Well, so when you guys are, when you're connecting and you're collaborating, what is one thing that you kind of hope for in every grid? Because you said you've been, creating these grids for a while, but like, what's one thing that maybe is just like on the back of your mind that like you hope happens in every grid?
One of the things that's been said a lot about the way that we structure our grid and the way that we have everything organized is we really want them, the level 1, to establish the foundational skills. And so I would say that one of the very, very most important things is to make sure that every kid has mastered level 1 and really has that strong understanding before they move on to level 2. Because I don't know what else.
Well, I think you're saying kind of like having a strong foundation is, yes. You really want them to have a strong foundation. If you are unfamiliar with the grid, just to kind of give a little bit of background for those of you who are listening, the grid is a framework for mastery learning. It's self-paced, but we give them as teachers all the tools so students can be successful. And that level 1 is laying the foundation. It's that, that pre-teaching or reteaching. It's kind of calling things to the front of their mind so that they're fully prepared to then be exposed to the new content, which is in level 2 and level 3, which is often where we see that mastery being assessed. And then it continues to extend their thinking in level 4 and 5. And so, Katie, what I'm hearing you say is that when you go into the grid, you're kind of thinking, I'm building up this level 1 so that they can be successful the rest of the grid. And that is something that is really important to you, which I think is super important, because sometimes we lose sight of that, right? We jump right into the new content and we forget, what do they need to know to even learn the new information?
Yes. And I think the grid really sets them up for, identifying which kids we need to be pulling. One of your things that you were talking about earlier is the teacher table integration with grid method, how often we are pulling kids to the teacher table to go back and make sure that they have mastered those foundational skills.
And it's not just about, yes, like you're saying, it's the skills, but it's not just about the skills. It's about helping them gain the confidence, because like you both have said, math is sometimes really tricky and can be very overwhelming for students, especially I felt like in 6th grade when they kind of start to transition to some harder concepts. And, you're really helping them understand that it is accessible. You can succeed at this. It might take you a turn at the teacher table. It might take you, a couple reviews of some pieces, but it's helping them understand that they have just as chance of success as everyone else in that classroom. And because it's all laying that out in the first level, which I think is so powerful. And it's so much more than just, just their learning skills. It's so much more than that.
One of the questions that has come up before is like, when we first started the grid, we were like, what are we going to do while they're working? And Lord, I'm busier now than I ever have been as a teacher.
Well, okay, so let's talk about that though, because, sometimes when we do our training, we kind of say that your time is spent differently. You're not, answering like the same question 17 times. You're not, you're not grading papers, or you're not, the time is just different. So wouldn't you say that even though you're busier now than maybe you were in traditional teaching, the busyness is way more productive?
Very targeted.
Yes.
It's looking at exactly what their needs are and pulling the kids that have those exact needs.
Yes. This was one of my comments that I was talking about with Katie beforehand, that coming from like in middle school, I guess I never thought of having a teacher table, if I'm honest. I thought that was more of an elementary thing. And even when I came into my classroom, there was nothing set up for a teacher table, especially in the math room. There might have been maybe in some of the reading ILA rooms, but not in the math room. So I never thought of doing a teacher table. And now I have kids at my table every day. I have kids every class. I have some that just come because they want just to sit next to me and be reassured, but I don't have to like say anything to them. They just want to be right next to me. Yep. And then I have the ones that I intentionally pull. But I'm working with kids more now than I was when I was doing the traditional setup. So the teacher table was a huge game changer for me. And even in a middle school setting, it's so powerful.
That's such a good point, that if we didn't see it as kids, it probably wasn't something that was in our mind. Even in college, if we didn't sit in a classroom and observe a teacher that had a teacher table, it probably was not, something that wasn't on our mind to have. Julie said in the comments that she never had one until she started using the grid too. And I know I had one, but honestly, if I'm going to be really honest, it just collected papers and my junk. Like it was never used for people to sit at, it was just an extra table. So it is interesting how you reframe your thinking and what students are able to do and what you're able to do within this. So then that kind of leads me to my next question is, what is the biggest, I would say, success that you've seen with using the grid? What's the biggest like cheering moment? And it can be kind of a summary of like a lot of the same moments, or,
it makes me feel, I haven't pre-thought this answer. So
okay, you're good. I did put you on the spot.
when the kids, so we both teach advanced kids and just regular 6th grade on level. And we do structure the classrooms a little bit differently. But when our advanced kids, they are fully learning through the grid. When they come back and they're like, this is so easy. And I really think it's because we've broken down the TEKS, our skill content so much that it's just so easy for them. And the kids that would typically struggle, they're coming to me and they're saying, what was the problem with this? This is so easy. And I know it's because we've laid that foundation, and that makes me feel like we are truly setting them up for success.
I think it's kind of fun. Our 7th graders will come back, and our 7th grade team starts to try it out, and then kind of they pull away, and then they start to try it out, and they kind of go back and forth all the time. But I had a girl, and that one of the teachers comes up to me and she goes, I want you to know that one of your students has every single grid packet from 6th grade that they carry with them in their backpack. I'm like, and now she's in 7th grade with all of her packets. She's like, these are the greatest, Miss Kavanaugh. I love them.
That's so funny.
And the kids love the structure to be able to, our kids love to be able to look back and go, okay, wait, this has to do with this. And so I need to look back at this in order to be able to figure out what I'm doing here.
Yeah, it's very much laid out so they can figure out and navigate, like, what did they learn and what is going to come up, which I think as teachers, we sometimes look at our curriculum and we think that makes sense. And, like, we see how it's laid out and it makes sense to us, especially math. It's so much of a, kind of a stepping stone. But to a kid that has 8 or 10 classes in a day, they may not be able to piece together unless it is laid out for them, which the grid does just that. So I totally agree. I saw the same thing in my classroom. When students would miss a piece of one part, they knew exactly where to go back and find the connection and be able to then move forward, which is so awesome. And I agree, Andrea, having those little moments where kids are like, this is so easy. You're like, yeah, sure. Because it's like, you want them to feel like excited and confident, but at the same time, you're like, it isn't really easy. You just understand it. And you have, like you said, you guys have provided them all of the tools necessary. And so to see students struggle less and find success more is such an awesome feeling. And, it's kind of fun to see so many people dropping things in the comments, just having students come back and say that they missed classes, like you guys are saying. It does make it all worth it. That is something whether or not we want to admit it, we do love that as teachers, is when students come back and say they miss our class, and you having that, constant reminder is so, so fun. But yeah, just being able to like structure your classroom and being freed up to kind of think differently, think outside the box. And I know, Katie, you kind of shared with me before we jumped on that you use the term old teacher, which I disagree with. You are a seasoned teacher.
There you go.
But you kind of said, like it's not totally common for someone to completely like change their teaching style. And so that's so amazing that you just decided, like, I'm just going to do this and I'm going to try it and see what happens. And you have no regrets, right?
No, I've not. And every year she and I are going through, she has this running Google Doc of updates for next year. And it's all the things that we're like, okay, well, this worked great. We may want to tweak this for next year. We may want to, with our school district does not do standards-based grading exactly like standards-based grading is written to be done, but we call it standards-based grading. Okay. So when we do any kind of grading, it's always put the standard in, but then they get a grade for that. Mm-hmm. And one of the last pieces I think that we have been trying to get into the change of is really we are eliminating any kind of unit test per se. Mm-hmm. And we're just going to level quizzes. And in Texas, they're the TEKS. So it's kind of a TEKS check just to make sure they've mastered those standards before they move on to the next. And it may repeat the same standards, or it probably does repeat the same standards at a different depth of knowledge. Yep. And then it just continues to grow.
Look at you using all those The worst depth of knowledge. Chad Ostrowski would be so proud. Well, and I think it's cool that you're like providing that moment of reflection, because we all done that, right? We've all like in the moment been like, I need to change this for next year. Even at the end of the week, you think through all the things that you're like, I should do this. But how often do people actually sit down and document it and then make it happen? I know I was really great at the pie in the sky ideas, but never great on the day to day. So that's really cool that you have that shared document, so that in 6 months you can come back and look and say, oh, these are the things we wanted to change and be a little bit better, which, talking to you two before we jumped on here, that's so clear. And everything you guys want to do, your focus is like being a little bit better. And you've obviously given us like a ton of examples. So this is kind of where we're going to shift, and we're going to talk through the progress, not perfection section. So you guys ready to kind of switch gears in our conversation?
Yes.
All right, sit tight. All right, welcome back. My name is Katie Miglin, and we are here with the Sunday weekly warm-up that is streamed in our private Facebook group. If you are not a part of our private Facebook group, which is a tongue tie, I've decided, make sure that you jump over and join us so that you can join us live and stay connected with all the amazing conversation that is happening every Sunday. But if you are not a part of our group now and you're listening on Monday, we still welcome you, and we are still hopeful you're getting a lot of things out of this great conversation. I have Andrea and Katie here with me, who are a phenomenal grid method users and teachers in Texas. And they are just kind of radiating that be better mindset and kind of sharing all of their passions for their classrooms, their middle school math classrooms. And so grateful that I get to start my week with you too. So this section, this progress, not perfection section of the show, is kind of where we focus on how do we set ourselves up for a successful week. And honestly, this is the thing that I feel like is so important. We hear it oftentimes in the world of education, but I feel like it's got to be true in a lot of careers, that Sunday scary feel of you're getting into a new week, the weekend is over. It's very easy to kind of get in that like negative headspace of another week. So
spring break just ended for us.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yes, I was actually thinking that some people are finishing up spring break. Some people are like, spring break is on the horizon. I know I talked to a few teachers they've got almost a month before spring break. It is kind of a tricky time of year because some people are barely hanging on and some people are like refreshed. But regardless if you had spring break or you're jumping into it, Andrea and Katie, what are some things that you do, kind of grid method aside, just you as people, as educators, what do you do to help yourselves have successful weeks so that you don't get wrapped up in that negative headspace?
Family.
Okay.
Family is such a huge thing. I'm a mom. I have 2 boys and my husband, and family, spending time with my family is the key to helping me be a better teacher, so that when I'm at work, I'm at work.
Yep.
And when I'm at home, I have quality time with them to make
So
them.
if you were talking to a teacher who's maybe struggling to balance the two, you being a seasoned teacher, not using the same words you use, but what advice would you give them?
There is always work you can do. There is always, at every point in time, something that you can do, something you can change, something, and you really have to draw that line. You have to set your cutoff time and be done. Nights and weekends need to be spent with your family because they're going to be there forever.
Yeah, that's
These
true.
kids are there for a year. And you can put as much as, you put your heart and soul in while you're there. And I get to work early. I leave a little bit late, but I don't bring it home. And yeah, it's not overly early or overly late, but
right. You set some boundaries within reason. And that's such a good point. So often we hear this all the time of like, really preserve your work time. But I think kind of something to point out that you're saying is, yes, you have to set boundaries, but for you, you also need to get your work done. So coming in a little earlier, staying a little late provides you that ability to get the job done, feel like you're being successful, but then also feel okay walking away from it and being able to be intentional with your family at home, which is so hard sometimes to do, as we know this job is so personal and, it's easy to kind of take up a lot of our, brain power. But you being able to kind of set those parameters that you've decided is best for you and being able to walk away is so powerful. Mm-hmm. So, Andrea, what do you do to kind of put yourself in a good headspace as the week unfolds?
Well, I'm also a mom of 2 boys. Mine are much younger. Yes. Katie's are almost all grown. One's in college and one is about to be there, junior, and mine are 3 and 1. Okay. Honestly, I do need to have my family time at home. And before having my boys, I was not good at this. And
that's when my kids were little.
I jumped on board and I just didn't understand the whole mom life. You just don't know until you're in it. And thankfully, Katie was gracious and let me be me. And now I'm, living through it. But I've really struggled, honestly, with that work balance. And I think because I became a mom during COVID, right before COVID hit, and that allowed me to really put family first. And it was easy going back to just, okay, I have to leave. I have to go pick up
my responsibility.
And now I have 2 of them. So I still struggle. I'm the perfectionist of this partnership. So I want everything to be perfect and set. But I don't work at home much anymore, which is refreshing. It's freeing, and I get to spend my time, like, we're big outdoors people. We go on walks all the time. I used to be a pretty avid runner, but I need that time away and just a little bit of time, maybe an hour or 2 on Sunday night or Saturday morning, whenever it happens. But just having a little bit of time to focus on work and know that I'm ready for the week helps me, so that I'm not trying to just show up on Monday morning.
I mean, I hate to even say this because it's going to come across the wrong way. She is very much a perfectionist. And I'm the one that has to look at her a lot of times and go, okay, it's good enough. We've got to settle with good enough right now because we've either got to get it done or we need to cut ourselves off. And there is a point as a teacher that it's good enough. Is it going to achieve what you need it to achieve? Yes. So
that's huge. That statement right there is huge. And sometimes we do lose sight of that, is what was our overall goal of said task? And have we achieved what we wanted to achieve? Oh, I love that. Honestly, Katie, where were you when I was in the classroom? Because I needed you on my shoulder. Andrea, I laugh because I can literally relate to both of you so much. I feel like we would have been an awesome teaching team because, Katie, I think it's so valuable that you're kind of a good reminder and kind of a good person to, like, remember the balance, and that is important. But then Andrea, I really relate to you because I was the same way. I wanted I wanted to look nice. I wanted to be prepared. I wanted, I'm organized, type A. The team can totally tell you that. Anybody who went to the conference could tell you that. But you said that you spend a little bit of time on the weekend to set you up for success. And that works for you because you know what your headspace is. And that was the exact same way I was. I knew that I needed to, like, open up my plan book on Sunday night and review what was coming. I needed to kind of wrap my head around what was, that week was bringing. And Katie, you're like, I need to separate. I need to be, I need to invest in my family when I'm home. And that works. And I think it's so awesome that you guys have kind of those differing personalities, but are able to come together to work so well together. Because Andrea, you probably know if you send Katie a message on the weekend that she may or may not respond if it's related to school. And that's okay, because that's the relationship you have developed.
What's funny is I'm the one that'll respond. You're the one that's I'm chasing kids. Yeah. No, I think that's honestly I think there's a couple things that have made us successful as a partnership. And one was just, she was coming from elementary. I was mentally going to high school and we met in the middle. But then then this side of us, like I'm the perfectionist and she's the, out of the box thinker. Like we really do complement each other in our partnership. And I think our kids honestly get the best out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, especially when you guys are co-planning, but you're taking your two personalities and meshing them. So a kid isn't just getting one personality realistically, because how closely you work together, they're really getting two. And I agree with Andrea, such an amazing partnership. I would say anyone who's listening, if you have a teacher that you can collaborate with and you can really kind of work together, lean on them, work with them. I know I didn't necessarily have people that I could co-plan with, but I had people who I could bounce ideas off with. And, I had friends that were the pie in the sky, big ideas, the creative thinkers that I could say, here's all the logistics. What do I do with it? And so it's really important to kind of find those people, because it really helps bring out your best teaching. So, okay. So we've talked into how you set yourself up for success for the week, but now I have a semi-personal question that I am putting on the spot. So it might be hard to answer, but if you were having a bad week, or if someone near you is having a bad week, what is one thing that you like to do to reset, to help you as a person kind of keep going and have a better week?
I need to go exercise. I need to be outside, get away, probably by myself, don't have a kid with me.
I can relate. I have two little ones in the house too. Like they stay home, I gotta go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. So taking some intentional time, it's not just like going, doing something alone. You're being intentional, you're exercising, doing something you care about that will help reset, but also that you're doing it alone, which will help just as much. So I love that. Okay, Katie, you're having a rough week. What's something you do to turn around?
I thrive on people. I'm on the phone with one of my good friends. I'm, venting with somebody and just getting it out, and then everything's better. And people time with me, I'm one of those that I just need people.
Okay.
And that fuels me and makes everything better.
So are you the person if you've had a rough week, are you like getting a happy hour or getting a dinner together on Friday to like have something to look forward to so you can like be around people to end your week? Is that you?
I did when I was, now it's more, 17-year-old and an 18-year-old. I'm usually home trying to figure out what they're going to do.
That's true. That's true.
That kind of stuff. Monitoring them.
Nice.
No, well, I've always loved it.
Good. I like that you both have different things. You know what you need. So there's been a ton. Honestly, I can't even keep up on all the comments. Just commenting on your partnership and how you guys work so well together. Julie says, best advice I got as a new teacher was to always do zero work on one day of the weekend, which is kind of speaking to what you're saying, Andrea, just, really kind of limiting it, but making sure that you are getting the work done if you feel that's what you need. Just so much good conversation around, is this like good enough? Is this done what you want it to achieve? So lots of things, lots of nuggets you probably didn't even know that people are taking away from this conversation. So my last question, I know I've been kind of firing them at you, but my last question, if someone is listening to this today on Sunday, tomorrow on Monday, or sometime, and they are like, man, Andrea and Katie seem super interested in this grid thing, what is one piece of advice you would give to a new grid user?
I have so many pieces of advice.
Okay, you can give a couple.
Gosh, this is our third year of using it, and we are still like, some of the grids we're getting into right now, this point of the year, is when I was on maternity leave both times. So we are majorly tweaking, and I think we both were like, oh, grid method, once you get it, you're set, you'll be okay. Yeah. And we always say in August, okay, this year should be easier because we've got all this laid out. And then we're working, because we're just constantly tweaking. So I think one of the things is that it does take time to really develop your craft and like figure out, how does the grid method work for you? Because there's so many different people that use grid method.
Yes.
And, figure out who you want to model off of. And then still you have to put your personality into it. So let it have time. It needs to marinate.
Okay. Oh, I love that. Let it marinate. That's a good one.
We've
Katie, what do you
tried
think?
so many different things. We first started off, we were stalking another teacher that did grid that had all of their stuff posted. And we pretty much started off going, okay, let's do this because it meets our TEKs, it meets our standards.
Yep.
And then we started to realize that there were gaps in there. So we had to go back and revamp again. And but having that basis, and now I see on the Teach Better Facebook group, I see different people with a totally different style of grid than we even do,
Right.
with all the fancy, level 1 tab, level 2 tab. And ours is not that fancy, but our objectives and our standards are solid with where we've gotten now.
I have not told Katie this yet, so she'll be hearing this for the first time. On the 12-hour live a couple weeks ago, I was just popping in. I had the boys and my husband was around and all this. So whenever I was able to, I just logged on and I was listening. And one of the ones that I logged on to, it was I don't remember who it was, but they were making an elementary, like second grade or third grade math grid. And I was like, oh, this is elementary. Oh my gosh, I learned so much from that. And one of the things that was said in there was she was looking at the TEKs or her skills a grade level below and a grade level above to get those gaps and then do the extension stuff as well. Yep. So for those gaps that we are constantly finding, I was going to say at some point to Katie, like, we need to maybe look at the 5th grade standards, and we can see what exactly they're coming to us with. And because we've done that some, but that's one way that we can improve. But so yes, I just told you that. Sorry.
But it's a good point, because like you said, you've done it, but maybe not with the same intention as you'd be doing it for now. And it is good to, regardless of how you're teaching, it is always good to know what are students walking into your classroom knowing from the year before. And it is so hard. We get in our tunnel vision of like, this is the stuff I have to teach. And it is hard sometimes to remind yourself, like, what are they going to be exposed to, or what do I need to fully prep them for to take the next step forward? But also, what knowledge do they have walking into my classroom? Because that is ultimately going to impact how they learn in your room, which, as you said, with the grid, you're finding the gaps. And so being able to see, are those gaps from 5th grade? Or are they from another year? Or how did they teach it? And all that kind of plays that part of building a successful grid. So I love that you said just constantly reflecting. Julie said, just like traditional teaching, no matter how you're teaching, reflection is super, super important. And you can't assume that, as much as we all wish that one year will be easy, I'm with you. I think quality teaching isn't necessarily easy, especially if you are constantly in that reflection mode and thinking, how can you be a little bit better one year to the next? So, man, I have loved this conversation. If you are joining us on Sunday, I hope that you have such a successful week. Katie and Andrea, thank you so much for kind of giving us the last hours of your spring break. So hopefully you're kind of ramped up and ready to go back in the classroom. But I am confident just with some of this, positive conversation we've had, people are going to be just have a good week. And if not, like Katie said, call people, maybe go hang out with some friends, be around people. Or if you're more like Andrea, go for a run, leave the kids at home, and just kind of take some time for yourself. Maybe if you're not a runner, like some people are not, maybe just take a walk or go to a park or go somewhere away from people just to kind of reset yourself. So thank you so much. And we'll see you next week.